for what they are asking from the market increased like many times after Pix, Pay, even other countries' payment methods. So this is good because when they contrast the experience they have in Pix with the experience they have processing a Swift, it's like day and night. It's totally different.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report, a podcast produced by Activo Media and Advisory. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley, and today I'm joined by Matheus Moura, who is the co-founder and CEO of Avenia, which is building out cross-border payment infrastructure for the Americas. Mateus and the Avenia team have been longtime friends of the show. I think we first had you on maybe a year and a half ago, if I recall correctly. A lot has changed since then, a lot of good things, and you've also rebranded, so we're going to get an update from Mateus on that. And but yeah, would love to welcome you back to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Glad to be back.
Awesome. So maybe just to get started here, maybe just give us a quick refresher of what Avenia, formerly known as BRLA Digital, what are you guys doing?
Awesome. We are a financial infrastructure company that also have our own stablecoin, BRLA, which is pegged to the Brazilian real. Basically, we help companies to create financial services experience inside their applications. We are focusing today in FX, so basically helping companies to move money cross-border and create experiences in the cross-border payment space for their end users.
I know a couple of months back, you guys formally rebranded to Avenia. Maybe just tell us quickly what's the motive behind that, and we can also expand on this later in the show. But what was sort of the motive for, like, why do we need to, what's behind the new name?
Yeah, so Avenia gives the notion of the avenues in Spanish or Portuguese, avenida, which is basically infrastructure for cars to move on. And it's what we are trying to do with money, create the financial infrastructure for money to move easily and freely. And it's important for us because, first of all, it was kind of confusing having a token in the company with the same name, but also because we do have the plans to become a more Latin America and regional company than a Brazilian company. So a new name with that purpose means a lot for us.
And then maybe for those who aren't familiar, maybe give us a quick backgrounder on your personal, like, how did you end up in this role? How did you end up in this project to begin with? I know you guys actually started this company doing something completely different, and you pivoted into doing stablecoins, then into the financial infrastructure. Maybe give us kind of your background and how did you arrive at this point in your career?
Yes, for sure. I am an engineering by formation, but I never practiced engineer. I actually went directly to the capital markets as a public equities investor. I did that for 7 years. And then in 2021, we decided to create a company around the blockchain space, actually. The idea was totally different, was to create a savings account in dollars for Brazilians. But this was before crypto regulation. So we understood that was very complicated in terms of compliance, the regulatory issues. So we decided to actually create a fund, a quantitative hedge fund that basically was doing arbitrage in the crypto space, trading between different exchanges. And by the end of 2022, the Congress here in Brazil passed the crypto law, and we decided to pursue our previous dream and go after creating a company, which is now called a VASP, right? A virtual asset service provider. And we created BRLA, which was basically an issuer of BRLA stablecoin. And from there, we started doing payments and became Avenia.
And then, so stablecoins have really become the hot topic in crypto right now. And I think Latin America is really kind of ground zero for this activity. And maybe talk about how does Avenia fit into this narrative right now, and then maybe what notable trends are you seeing from your vantage point? I know you guys have been, your numbers of just payments that you're processing and it has been steadily increasing, and you guys in your client base as well. So maybe we'd love some color on just like How do you fit into this whole trend? And then what notable things are you seeing from your point of view?
Yes, I think this is a trend still at the beginning, actually, because most people today think about stablecoins for payment, for global money movement, for FX, for cross-border, or something like that, which is great. Is actually what we are doing right now. But if you think a little bit like second and third phases of this movement, we basically have on one hand embedded finance, which is something that every company, AI, marketplaces, e-commerce, SaaS companies, they are all trying to do and offer more financial service for their clients. Things like Shopify, most of their revenues come from the financial service. Same for Toast, same for Mercado Libre. So when you think about that, this is a trend that is becoming bigger and bigger, but it's very complicated to create your own financial service inside your company, right? Even more if you are a non-financial company. On the other hand, there's stablecoins, which is basically standard technology that is you transfer money in the same way, you hold money in the same way, you collect yield in the same way, you freeze money like escrow accounts in the same way. For credit, this is very important. And basically, the confluence of those two technologies can transform this, can accelerate hugely this embedded finance movement. So the way we see stablecoins is far behind like FX. It's like far more than FX. It's basically a way to recreate every financial primitive, like FX is one, but investing is another one, credit is another one, in a way that you could offer this as a service, any country, for any company. So the analogy that we like to picture is before cloud, you had to do a lot of investments in infrastructure, in databases to start your company, right? It's a very big investment. It was hard to find the capital and was harder to innovate. But after Amazon transformed all of those developer tools and infrastructure in APIs, a boom of innovation and new companies trying to win against the incumbents started. So we think stablecoins will do the same for finance. It will be so easy to create a new revenue line for your business that involves something around finance, like payments, FX, credit, investing, that every single company with a lot of users, business or consumers, will start doing their own financial service and start competing against the usual suspects like banks and fintechs. And it will be very easy with stablecoins. So this is why we are building that. We started with FX, but I think the path is to become this infrastructure company that can provide a lot of financial primitives for every company in a very specific region. In our case, we are focused on Latin America.
Got it. So the idea is that basically like any company can and will become like a financial services company in some form, right? With this financial infrastructure that stable coins effectively enable and are also kind of a part of. And then that's what you guys are trying to build ultimately is the kind of the long-term vision is like building that platform for any company, irrespective of what type of service or the core service they may offer is going to like can and will end up offering these financial products and services in some capacity. And you guys are trying to kind of own that market essentially of being the infrastructure provider for that. And then at the moment, it sounds like most of your, the big focus is on like the FX and the cross-border payment side. I think I saw even an X post or somewhere saying that like 90% of your revenue right now is from, cross-border FX. And maybe what does that tell us about like just the market demand for this technology, and maybe the product market fit that we're seeing right now, like even immediately in 2025. P2P.me is the fastest way to buy and sell USDC in Brazil using Pix. It's direct, secure, and fully on-chain. Backed by multi-coin capital and Coinbase Ventures, P2P.me offers a compliant on and off ramp with ZK KYC and no hidden fees. You can easily use P2P.me to pay Pix QR codes in Brazil using your USDC balance. Just top up, scan, and pay. Check out the link in the show notes to get started. I'd like to take a moment to tell you about our show sponsor, Avenia. If you're building a wallet, a crypto consumer app, or a global payment platform, Avenia is your bridge to Latin America. You can instantly connect to Pix, SPAY, and CBU using stablecoins with a single API. No banks, no FX desks, no SWIFT. Head over to avenia.io to learn about how you can move money globally with full compliance and real-time settlement. Now back to the show. What does that tell us about like just the market demand for this technology, and maybe the product market fit that we're seeing right now, like even immediately in 2025?
Yes, no, that's a very interesting topic because FX is really the way we started, and there's a reasoning about this. It's basically because FX is a pain for most company that they have to do, so they cannot postpone. Let's say you have to pay a supplier abroad, you have to pay. You have no other option, right? To continue your business, you have to pay. So it's a little bit different than providing investments to your clients or credit to your clients. You can postpone this decision of creating this new revenue line. But FX is at the same time both a revenue line but also a cost line. So for some things you have to interact with FX if you are a more global company, right? So because of that, it's an immediate pain. They need an answer, and usually people are a little bit more open to try new solutions. Uh, so this is why we are starting with FX, and also I think we have a lot of the pillars for doing FX companies, like technology for us, understanding stablecoins, but also trading, managing risk, managing regulatory side, which is something that we as founders also have from our background. But it's interesting that this is a movement that is not solely starting in Brazil, but everywhere, right? We know companies like what we are trying to do with FX popping up everywhere. And this is very simple. It's because until now, the best solution to moving money abroad was basically doing everything to not move at all. So the way Wise did is basically, I'll have 5 billion BRL in Brazil, $1 billion outside Brazil, and I will pray every day that my inflows are equal to my outflows, so I don't have to move those money at all. So I have to keep my balance at the same. But if I have to,
You're just
and if I
like
need to,
moving, you're just debiting and crediting on a spreadsheet, basically. Like,
debiting
okay.
and crediting. But if you have to move and you use the Swift, it's going to be pretty complicated. So the best solution that Wise started creating is basically, paradoxically, not moving money at all. But this is very inefficient in terms of balance sheet, and also as a competitive edge for Wise, that it's becoming became more and more relevant. And now I think with stablecoins, it will become very fast, totally relevant, because money will actually move, but fast and cheap. This is the difference. We will not need those kind of pools of cash everywhere to try to give the look and feel of instant, even though it's not. And this is why it's so obvious to start with FX. I think the merits are very clear for companies starting to use that. It's the difference it's huge.
No, it's interesting the Wise comparison, because I know a lot of people who use Wise. I mean, I use Wise myself quite a bit, and just from the user interface side, it's like, oh, well, I just, I sent money and it like arrived I sent dollars and it arrived in my bank account in Brazil, like instantaneously. Like that seems pretty fast, right? And it's like, well, on the back end, like that's not, the money's not actually moving. It's just there's just debiting and crediting happening, right? And so what you're saying is like, I mean, it works. But it's like a patchwork solution, right? When there's a lot of costs involved, just like maintaining these pools of capital in all these various markets. And it's like cheaper and a lot more efficient just to actually move the money if you can do so for basically no cost, which blockchains and stable coins allow you to do. Um, and let's talk a bit about like why the Latin America region, in your view, has kind of become like a hotbed for this activity. I think there's maybe a certain readiness for stable coins and in this specifically in this context of FX cross border. I think due to just maybe some of these reasons you're mentioning, but also Latin America is kind of on the fringe of the correspondent banking system globally. But there's also a lot of these integrations, these real-time payment integrations in places like Pix or places like Pix in Brazil, like Spay in Mexico. And it kind of just seems like, some of these blockchain folks have been able to hack these, like use these real-time instant payment systems that were developed by each individual country, kind of like hack these systems and start using them for stable coins. But maybe talk a bit about how there's just like this readiness in Latin America for this, which has kind of helped with this whole product market fit conversation.
Yes, I think on the demand side, here in Latin America, most users, not only I'm talking about individuals, but also companies, like most users of payments are very used to instantaneous transfers right now, right? So the bar for what they are asking from the market increased like many times after Pix, Pay, even other countries' payment methods. So this is good because when they contrast the experience they have in Pix with the experience they have processing a Swift, it's like day and night. It's totally different. So they are very open to test new solutions that give them an experience more similar to the experience they have with Pix. I think also here we have a lot of complications in terms of reporting, getting access to the good FX bank providers are also complicated. So it's not easy to have the relationship to do a proper FX fast and easy. If you are aiming to use APIs, then even more complicated than a transfer over a phone call. So this is in one of the sides. Like the users are now expecting the system that works better than what we are currently Swifters currently providing, right? On the other side is also Latin America is a place that many global companies are trying to come here, right? Think about Asian companies, for example. Europe is a complicated place for them. US, most of them either are there or it's also hard to enter. In Latin America is the region they can easily come. It's of course there's a lot of complications, but in terms of go to market, there's a lot of similarities, and they are aiming to grow here. So those guys need financial service, they need payments, they need FX, they need accounts, they need a lot of things that if they are aiming to achieve that with traditional rails with Swift, it will take very long for them to replicate the product that they have in their home countries. So they are much more willing to interact with stable coins and blockchain technology to replicate what they have in Asia, in their home countries right now, and grow as fast as they can in Latam. So I think we have both sides. The customers here are demanding, but also companies from abroad are trying to go and come to Latin America and grow.
So switching over to Avenia here, you guys tout this idea of like one API with global reach and local access, right? So you can basically have like one API that will integrate like Pix, Spay, stablecoin settlement, FX conversions, kind of all in one one platform essentially. Can you maybe just walk us through how this works? Like how would a developer or a business or a user like engage with the stack?
Yes, for sure. For example, we have a client which is a consumer app from Singapore, and they noticed a lot of their clients were traveling to Brazil. So, and asking them, okay, in Brazil, there's this thing called Pix. Everyone accept this as payment, but I would love a way to pay Pix using your app. So what we did with our APIs, they basically can convert the Singaporean dollars to USDC, and from there, they only call an API and we do the conversion to BRLA, the redeeming of BRLA, and the payment to the merchant. It takes like 4 seconds for everything to be done. And this foreigner, they have the look and feel that they are a Brazilian paying Pix. They are paying their hotel, Uber, whatever you think when here in Brazil, with their balance actually in their native currency. So this is an example of how they can use our infrastructure to create a new experience for their users. And they don't even need to know everything about like anything about Brazil. They don't need a local entity, and they can use actually our compliance services as well, like our QIC from our APIs. So we do everything, every check for them, and they are good to go. It's pretty easy. Like you can set up this kind of experience for your for the company in 1 week. There's I'd like to go over those use cases because I think it's easier for to understand. We also have a company that they issue credit cards for Brazilians abroad. So Brazilians, when traveling abroad, can use a card issued from the US, for example. The Brazilians use the card, they have a bill to pay after 30 days, and basically they can pay with Pix, which is the same experience they have paying their bills here locally with their local cards. They pay Pix, we collect this, convert it to USDC, send abroad, convert back to US dollars, and we pay the issuer. Neither the issuer or the client need to know they are interacting with stablecoins to be like like frankly speaking, they are only like paying with their currency or receiving with their currency. So we try to do this. Our API works in a way that if you want to offer a totally abstract experience, you are good to go. If you are more crypto native, you also can show BRLA, USDC. The way you want to interact and show to your user, it's very modular. So like those are some examples of how can companies can create different experience for their clients here.
Yeah, amazing. And I think the last time we were together in person was in Argentina, and I remember you were telling me about there's always this flow, but this corridor, Brazil to Argentina, right? Kind of depending on who has the stronger exchange rate, right? So now it's all the Argentines are coming to Brazil, where it used to be all the Brazilians were going to Argentina because it was cheaper there. But now it's inverted. And then when Brazilians are going to Argentina, they want to be able to pay for stuff with Pix, right? And when Argentines are coming to Brazil, they want to be able to pay for stuff with Pix too. Um, maybe talk. I mean, that seems to be like a fun application that's really found some product market fit, just because there's so much tourism back and forth between the two countries based on like a kind of like exchange rate, tourism arbitrage essentially. But it seems like there's a lot of flow going back and forth there. Maybe talk a bit about that.
Yes. There's a lot of flow between across Latin America, as we say, right? For example, what you just mentioned, like at the beginning of 2024, we saw a lot of Brazilians using our infrastructure to pay Pix in Argentina because we had a client that had a lot of merchants there that were accepting Pix to attract the Brazilian tourists. And now it's quite the opposite. Now a lot of Argentinians coming to Brazil, and our clients, which are mostly consumer apps, helping them to pay Pix here locally. But now we are actually deploying our own structure in Argentina to be able to interact a little bit better with the Argentinian pesos. And actually, we will be able to do this flow for the Brazilian apps as well, like the customer apps. For example, imagine I'll just give an example. It's not our client, right? But imagine you are a C6 bank customer. You can actually, if you log in your app, the geolocation will see that you are in Argentina, and they will show you the pay QR code Argentina. And you go to any merchant because everyone accepts QR code there, and you'll be able to pay the QR code in Argentina with your local currency, with your Brazilian balance. So basically, what we're trying to enable at the end is everyone can pay like a local in any country of Latin America, because with any balance you want. So you want to keep your balance in dollars and pay every payment method, local payment method in Latin America, that's fine. Or you want to keep a balance to your home country currency like BRL or Colombian pesos or whatever. So at the end, like this product could be a lot more intuitive for consumers to operate with.
So that's interesting. So you could go to Argentina and basically go to any merchant who has like a Mercado Pago machine, and you could just pull up this QR code, and then they would scan the merchant would scan the QR code, and then it would just process the payment instantaneously. My
Yes, exactly that. Exactly
okay.
that.
No, that's super interesting because I mean, if you've been to, I guess for folks who've been to Argentina, it's kind of like a crash course on like why all this stuff actually matters, right? But it's if you try to pay with a credit card at places, like they're going to charge you like a 20% fee, on the so, or if you're trying to get cash, like that's obviously a little complicated too. Um, depending on your balance and finding ATM, and like you have to go, or sometimes you have to go find these guys in the streets that are just sort of like these doleru guys that are just selling dollars or whatever it is. So so solutions like that, I think are super interesting and super creative. Um, Maybe like let's talk more about the BRLA token itself. And I know this is like kind of part of the stack that you guys have built. It was kind of maybe like original. This was kind of the idea of the company, but this is, you guys have kind of expanded beyond just this one token. But this is still sort of kind of a critical role in the stack that you guys have. And then maybe talk about like what's the role this token serves. Is this a token that people are like holding on to, or is this really more of just a vehicle for easy on and off ramping into fiat, or in and out of other currencies or other stablecoins?
Yes, I think in Brazil right now, there's one thing, there is a way for you to stop a transaction, this on-chain transaction in the middle. So, for example, you want to go from BRL to USDC. This is basically can be viewed as a mix of a local transaction, the PIX, and a cross-border transaction, a FX transaction, because USDC can be used to do cross-border transactions, right? So if you have the BRLA, it's easier for us to separate those flows and work with the correct partner banks for each one, right? So I have transactional banks as partners to do BRL to BRLA, which is of course a local transactions for sure. And to go from BRLA to USDC, I can use FX banks. This gives us a more compliant and robust solution in terms of reporting and what we can do, and gives a lot of more peace of mind for our partners bank, if it's important as well, right? Also, it's a way for foreigners to hold BRL balances, right? So we have some companies that, let's say, they have to pay 3 million in the next month BRL to their employees, marketing, law firm expenses here in Brazil. They can convert at any time and have this BRL balance in BRLA and do the proper FX transaction right after to properly pay those folks. But they can manage their risk a lot better, not being exposed for the fluctuations between the dollar and the BRL, because they already have obligations in BRL, right? So for them, it's much easier to do in that way that than opening a non-resident account, which is always complicated and not easy to do. So there are some use cases, but I think the most important thing that we are seeing is, if you think about it, we believe in a world that every financial service will be rebuilt and have stablecoins and blockchain in their foundation, right? If that's correct, if my vision of the world is correct, what is the second order effect of this? Is basically we are going to need liquidity in non-US dollar stablecoins, which means non-US dollar stablecoins will be relevant. If that's the case, who will be the owner of this public good or infrastructure? I think the owner of the most liquid stablecoins for occurrence, they'll have a lot of competitive advantage in the future. And as the biggest stablecoin in activity, we think we have the head start, but far from having the escape velocity. But we want to also transform BRLA in this most relevant stablecoin for Brazil. We also have the plans to launch the same stack that we have here, including the stablecoin for the other countries in Latin America, because it's strategic for the end game that we are seeing the world going after, right?
And that, yeah, that's gonna be my next question. Is thinking about this beyond Brazil, like where are you targeting next in Latin America, and like what makes, like why is it that you can kind of maybe like copy paste what you've built in Brazil into these other markets in Latin America? Like how big of a challenge is that going to be? Just given that some of these markets have maybe less liquidity, maybe they don't have quite the same financial infrastructure that Brazil currently has. But maybe talking about kind of how you're thinking about expanding throughout the Americas outside of Brazil.
I think it's a mix of the demand that we have from our clients and how the regulations are in this country right now. So, for example, Argentina, we have both. We have a very big demand from our clients, and we have a good regulatory landscape there with the VASPs and the PSPs. It's a little bit different than Brazil. So you have to think, we like to think more in the abilities that we need to have than in the licensing or what is the regulations in that country. So the abilities are basically connection to the payment system. Direct is better. The ability to outsource liquidity. So how can we set up our trading in a way that is pretty efficient? Compliance and the FX reporting. So how can we properly report that we are moving money from and to the country, right? So in case of Brazil, of course, there's some limitations in terms of volume, but the virtual as service provider will be able to do everything. Direct connection to the payment system, offering of payment accounts, FX transaction reporting up to $100,000 per transaction. Compliance we can do because every company can do the compliance by yourselves, and not only can, but you should. And the liquidity is something that it came from our previous experience from the hedge fund. We were already connected to a lot of trade placements, places to trade, and we already have this in Brazil, and the VASP will be able to do that for themselves and on behalf of their clients, right? In Argentina, it's a little bit different. The phase one includes not only the VASP, but this figure of PSP, which you need to connect to the payment system properly. So it's an offer payment accounts. So it's a little bit different, but at the end, you have to understand our playbook is based on which are the skills that we need. Then we partner with regulatory folks there, either internal or we outsource or both. And we're trying to understand and create a roadmap of phase one, phase two, phase N that, okay, what is the deploy in terms of getting those abilities? What we will outsource from third parties? What we will be build in house from scratch? And then we see the challenge that it is, right? So I think Argentina, we have bigger challenge than Brazil to replicate, but on the other hand, we have a head start because our customers already want this solution. So we will start with some volumes. Same goes for Colombia and Mexico. So I think those are the quick wins: Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico, because we have volume. Of course, we have to figure out and understand the roadmap of the regulatory deployments as we did in Argentina for Colombia and in Mexico. But then we will start asking ourselves, okay, what's next? We know we have a little bit demand for Peru, Uruguay, Chile, but nothing still compared with those three. So let's start with those three, and then we figure out later.
Yeah, that's super helpful, and I think it's super cool you guys are expanding this vision outside of just Brazil. I mean, I think that seems to be the successful pathway, right? Is if you can conquer Brazil, that kind of you can kind of open the doors to these other markets are opened up, right? Where I think it's a little harder if you go the inverse route, right? If you start in one of these other countries, then try to break into Brazil. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe to kind of wind things down here. Um, are there any other kind of, I guess, outside of the expansion question we just talked about, but are there any other like key milestones or interesting things in the roadmap that we should be looking out for in the next maybe 6 to 12 months? And I do want to ask you about the VASP regulation in Brazil as well, because I know you guys you've mentioned that you guys will be. I mean, we're still waiting for the regulations to come out on exactly how this is going to work, but um, you guys are intending to apply for one of these licenses, from what it sounds like. Even though you're not like, I guess when most people think of a VASP, they think of like a crypto exchange, but you guys aren't necessarily, a Binance or something. But the services you're offering are in line with that. So maybe talk a bit about how you're kind of playing the regulatory game in Brazil at the moment, and then any other like kind of key things in the roadmap we should be looking out for over the next few months.
Let me start with the regulatory side, but basically you're right. Well, we are going to apply for a VASP. We believe that being having the ownership of the regulatory stack is very core for the business that we are trying to do, because at the end I want to empower any company to offer financial services in Latin America. So I don't want them needing a lot of regulation, like licenses for them to do that, if they can just go and use my umbrella under my conditions. And if I can do everything or almost everything by myself, I can control the flow in a way that the experience will look amazing for them. It will be pretty easy for them to deploy those products, right? So that's a vision, and that's why we need and we believe that it's core. Of course, as you mentioned, there's still a lot of discussions regarding the virtual asset service provider license here in Brazil. We have some open topics. We are actually trying to be prepared for a lot of different scenarios, but I think at least we have the most important thing, which is basically our central bank is very pro business, and they are very inclined to listen from the industry, to understand why we believe that things should go path A or path B. I'm not saying they will accept what we are saying, but at least they are trying to understand, which is like a very, very big win for major companies. If we speak with a lot of companies in other countries, I think we have a very, very healthy relationship with our central bank here, uh, which is not like reality for most places, and that's actually good for Brazil. I think central bank in Brazil, it's they know how to innovate and how to hear from the industry, in still being firm, like still being very very uh, open with new things that are coming. Like VASP is just an example, where Pix was about the same, and Open Finance is another one that they are doing, right? So we strongly believe they will do the right thing, and the regulations will come with the final regulations will come very in a very good shape. Our vision is this should be something that we'll probably will hear from them before this, but the application process will probably start only next year, like January. But I'm assuming we'll see new publications from the central banks still this year, hopefully. Um, they are working, I know they are working very hard to deliver this. Um, and on the roadmap, I think besides growing to other countries, we also want to add new capabilities in terms of payment methods. So we are trying to understand what we can do with cards. We know this is important for e-commerce marketplaces to be able to accept cards. Also, in the spending methods, like issuance of cards is something that we are always trying to understand if we should do as a second financial primitive. Helping our clients to issue their own cards is something that it's always on the radar. But there's a lot of other things here in Brazil regarding credit, collateral management, escrow accounts. A lot of places that we see that stable coins can create much better experiences and reduce costs like by orders of magnitude for the companies. And more important than reducing costs is reducing complexity for new competitors to arise and start shaping the market, right? So we have, I think, new payment methods, new corridors as well, because at the end we want to help companies to grow and do their money flow from to and across Latin America. So being able to help them US dollars and euros is important, is what we do right now, but also doing some enablements with partners for our clients to operate against other currencies will be also like outside Latin America, of course, but will also be something that will be relevant for the companies that we are serving right now.
Yeah, well, lots to look forward to there. Sounds like you guys have a lot on your plate, but it's all full steam ahead. So, but Mateus, congratulations on the success you guys have had, and on the rebrand, and on the kind of the refreshed vision and broadened scope. Maybe I'll turn it back to you for any like final thoughts or any call to action you might have for our listeners here, and where can folks go to learn more about yourself and Avenia?
I think we are. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for the space. I think it's always good to talk with you, either in the show but also in person. And we are mostly our presence is mostly relevant in LinkedIn. So feel free to reach me out or one of my co-founders. And we are trying to help every company to establish themselves in Latin America and start doing business here. So if anyone wants to start right now, just reach us out and let's make that happen.
Well, Mateus, thanks again for your time here today. Really appreciate it. It's always good catching up with you guys and hearing what's new. And yeah, appreciate your time. And thanks everyone for watching. And we will see you next time on Brazil Crypto Report.